Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. It's Monday, and you know what that means. We got to take a look at Go Collect's hottest comics for the week of March 24th. Now, for those who don't know, Go Collect puts out a bi-weekly article that analyzes the hottest selling comic books based on volume of sales and eBay sales data. So let's take a look at the books and see what's moving in the market. But before I get into the books, if you guys could drop me a like or comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, helps support the channel, do one of those things, I would appreciate it. But let us dive right into the article here today. Of course, I will put a link in the description if you guys want to do further reading. This article is always written by Matt Tuck. But with that being said, let's talk about the fifth hottest book of the week. And the fifth hottest book of the week is one that continues to show up on this list week after week after week. This one is X-Men Volume 2, number 1, up 28 spots, now in the number 5 spot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, you guys know this would be the first issue of the X-Men series written by Jim Lee that came out in 1991. Now, this particular book that we're talking about this week is the cover D, which features that incredible Magneto cover. Now, I don't mean to belabor talking about this issue because it has been showing up on the list multiple weeks after week. And I do think that that is something to talk about in its own right. You know, when comics get hot in the market and start to really move, I mean, that can sometimes beget, the comic itself getting more hot once again. Like, if you're on eBay and you're following a few of those X-Men number 1s and all of a sudden the ones that you were following get bought up, well, that kind of creates that sort of panic in the market or that sense of urgency that now you have to, go after that next price book. So I have a feeling that, because this book is getting hot simply due to the fact that, maybe we have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness coming. We know that we're going to be getting Professor X in there. Maybe people are thinking there could be a Magneto tease, or we're starting to get those mutant appearances in the MCU. So people are thinking to themselves, hey, let me get my hands on a great Magneto book, a great Magneto cover. Hey, that X-Men number 1 is one of those best books. And as people slowly start to buy this more and more week after week, that's going to create that fervor and that movement. And also, not to get into spoilers about the number 1 book on the list this week, is also probably something that is happening for that one as well. But as we dig into the numbers for this one, we'll see that there aren't 9.9s on the census, actually 11, but those haven't been sold in a while, so hard to say what the fair market value for those would be. But if we look at the 9.8s, there's 4,700 here. Fair market value has them at 110, but 30-day moving has been 127. So again, a book that continues to be selling above fair market value. I mean, certainly we're not quite where we were, say, in the height of the market in 2021. We had that correction, but there's been a little bit of an uptick recently, at least in terms of like the volume of sales that we're seeing. You can see here in some of the sales that there is kind of a bias with what cover you actually get for this thing. So the Colossus cover right here commands 100, yet if we go down to the Magneto cover, we can see that people are willing to pay more around that 145, 135, 145 slash price right here. So definitely a book that people are really, continuing to gravitate to in the market here. People love this Magneto cover, and people are really excited about the potential for this character to show up in the MCU. And speaking of characters with the potential to be showing up in the MCU very soon, I think that makes a good segue into this next book here, which is, of course, Nova number 1, up 29 spots, now sitting in the 43rd slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this would be the first appearance and origin of the character known as Nova. Of course, this is the Richard Rider version of Nova, a book that was written by Marv Wolfman that came out in 1976. Now, unless you were sleeping under a rock this weekend, you probably heard the deadline news that it was officially announced that one of the writers who is currently working on Moon Knight will be the head writer for developing the next project in the MCU about Nova. And that was actually a deadline article. So when there's a deadline article or a variety article or something like that type of publication, that this is no longer rumor. This is actually a legitimate source with a legitimate confirmation. And that was huge news in the market. Everybody was flocking to this book right here. This one has been moving like crazy in the market. I do think that not only did we get a massive volume of sales, but we also did, in this particular instance, get a record high sale at the 9.8 grade. I believe it actually broke the $3,000 plateau, which, before its record was around the $2,500 range or so. A lot of people also, looking to that Marvel Point 1 book, the first appearance of Sam Alexander Nova. A lot of people thinking that, maybe the Nova we get in the MCU could be the Sam Alexander one. Based on all the rumors that are out there in the, kind of MCU blog sphere, it feels like maybe we're going to be getting both of the characters. So I think both books have really been taking off in the market. Both books have really been moving. But as we dig into the numbers for this one, let's see if Go Collect has actually updated their numbers here. Here at the 9.8 grade, fair market value suggested around the 1550 range, but 30-day moving was at 2700. And I do actually believe that we're going to see here some of those record sales. So here we have on March 27th, a 9.8 being sold around the $2,700 range. Here we have on March 27th, a slash price of $3,000. So maybe that was the, presumed record sale at $3,000. But who knows what that one really went for. Here on March 24th, we have another $2,700 sale. Just to put put it into perspective, the time before that, the 9.8s, say in February, early February, were selling around the $2,100 range. That was a heritage auction. And then even the time before that in January, you saw one go for $1,650. So this book has had a pretty massive rise in these last couple days. I think the record sale some time ago in November might have been this $2,900 one right here, but it feels like we've already surpassed that one. But that's not only just the 9.8s. I mean, we're also seeing different sales along different grade levels here. We had a 9.6 go for $800 just the other day. Actually, two of them went for that price range compared to the fair market value of $525. So definitely this book right here, first appearance of Nova, a book that, even in the raw form right now, if we're looking at sort of those low to mid grades, is selling around that $140 range or so. And that's in comparison to maybe a couple weeks ago where you could find the book at that $100 range. But definitely interesting, confirmed that Richard Rider Nova is going to be showing up in the MCU. I mean, I think a lot of people, always felt like this was going to be a character that would eventually show up, but the fact that they've actually come out and announced that one of the writers on Moon Knight is developing this show, that is definitely exciting news. All right, let's move on now to the third hottest comic of the week. And the third hottest comic of the week is one that I actually need to get in my collection. This one right here is New Mutants number 87, up 49 spots, sitting in the 33rd slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, you guys know this is the first appearance of the character known as Cable, a book that came out in 1990, written by Louis Simonson. And this one right here, of course, would feature the character that Josh Brolin played in the Deadpool franchise, otherwise known as Cable. This has been a book that I kind of feel like constantly yo-yos up and down between being, a pricey book and then also a not so pricey book. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of Cable fans. Certainly he's got those nostalgia points to a lot of the people who love the X-Men characters. He played a great role in that animated series. And this book definitely got hot when we got the Josh Brolin appearance in the Deadpool film. But, since that movie, it's definitely had a big correction. And I think now people are really starting to think about like, hey, maybe Josh Brolin and Cable might be showing up in the MCU. I mean, it would make a lot of sense based on where the MCU currently is as far as its narrative is concerned, where we're thinking about, hey, there's a lot of multiverse stuff going on. There's a lot of time travel elements with Kang the Conqueror. A lot of people are thinking about, hey, maybe Bishop is going to be the way in to bring X-Men, or people are thinking, hey, maybe the character of Cable can be the way into bringing X-Men. And with the confirmation that we would be getting Deadpool 3, well, that certainly would suggest that maybe Josh Brolin would sort of reprise his role as Cable in our MCU. And I think that the market is starting to jump back onto this book for that reason. But as we dig into the numbers for this one, we'll see that the 9.8s have 1,948 on the census. Fair market value suggested to be around the $500 range. However, 30-day moving, it's selling at the $535. This is in comparison to the 1 year that was at $694. And this is one of those books that, definitely had the biggest, I would say, drop off after we got the boom in 2021. You can just take a look at the graph right there. Definitely a book that got really, really hot, in those, months of April, May, June. We saw a sale at $940, and that's all the way now in comparison to where it currently sells around $549. So I feel like this might be one of those books that hit its floor and people are really starting to jump back in at this price. And considering that there was a time when this was actually selling for more, say back in, as you can see here, 2016. I mean, present dollar value in 2016 for this book was $700, and now you can get it for $500. I mean, this book seems like a great buying opportunity for someone out there. Definitely something that feels like it can definitely get to those old numbers it used to have. And of course, down here at the bottom, you're not going to see this book slab at the low grade, but typically speaking, when you go onto eBay, you can find raw copies selling around the $150, $160 range or so. All right, let's move on now to the second hottest comic of the week. And the second hottest comic of the week is one that is kind of interesting that is showing up on the list this week, but this one is Amazing Spider-Man number 375, up 61 spots, sitting in the 21st slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, this of course would be the Amazing Spider-Man book that came out in 1990 with that gold foil cover written by David Michelinie that would feature the first appearance of Anne Weaving, who is, Eddie Brock's ex-wife, who would later become She-Venom, and also Carl Brock, who is Eddie Brock's father. Now, this was one of those minor keys that got pretty hot during Venom number 2, but since then has definitely seen a drop-off in its values. But I think with everything going on in kind of the news sphere with regards to, Morbius, which we have coming up, a lot of people talking about how the symbiote storyline might be going to Tom Holland. Maybe there's going to be a new Spider-Man trilogy with Venom and Spider-Man. It's kind of given more life into a lot of these Venom keys. I feel like there's always, little bits of news and information about how Morbius is officially confirmed to be in the Venom universe, or, Tom Holland Spider-Man is confirmed to be within continuity to Morbius. Anytime we get these little notes and little nuggets of information with regards to what's going on in the Sony universe, that has the market thinking that, hey, these Venom books are still out there, these Venom books are still keys, and it's keeping them kind of moving in the market and still afloat. On top of all that, this is just sort of one of those books that I think people love to have this book in a slab. It looks nice on the shelf. It's got that gold foil cover. It's from the Copper Age. It's a great cover, you know, with Venom and Spider-Man on it. So definitely a book that is nice to have in the collection, regardless of movie spec. And as we dig into the numbers for this one, we'll take a look at those 9.8s. Fair market value has it around the $170 range, $1,915 on the census. 30-day moving, however, is around $150. So definitely a book that has, you know, gotten a lot cooler since we got Venom just a few months ago. But if you can see here, last few sales, someone got a nice little pickup here at $113. Someone here with $150, another one for $120, one for $185. So definitely depends on like where you find this book online, what the deal of the day is, but definitely one that I think collectors are always going to want to have in their collection and might continue to get hot once we start to see more Spider-Man in Venom in that Sony universe. All right, and let's move on now to the hottest comic of the week. And the hottest comic of the week is one of the comics that has been hot week after week after week, but this one is The Nice House on the Lake, #1, up 83 spots, now sitting in the 10th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, this is the first issue of the series written by James Tynion, known as The Nice House on the Lake. Now, we've talked about this book many times on the Go Collect list. It continues to show up. Maybe it has like a little volatility because it falls back down in its spots and then it kind of leaps back up. But right now it's in the, you know, number 10 slot, which definitely goes to show that this is one of the books that has been moving the most in the market. And kind of what I was talking about with X-Men #1, the Jim Lee one from 1991, it definitely feels like this is one of those things where it's like the more people talk about it, the more people, you know, decide to look up the book, the more people decide to buy the book. You know, they released this issue some months back in 2021. It had a 6-issue run, that first initial story arc, and then they took a big hiatus. And that hiatus didn't actually end until just a few weeks back. And that's actually when we got book number 7 for this one. So I think a lot of the market was sort of reminded about this series. And that's one of the reasons that, you know, people are continuing to jump back onto this thing because they want to catch up and get their hands on this book that presumably, you know, has a lot of spec value and is also a great read. And as we dig into the numbers for this one, we'll take a look at those 9.8s, 1,898 on the census. Fair market value suggests 120. But again, one of the reasons why, again, this book is so hot and moving so much is because the values are so affordable. Here you see 30-day moving, $67. Last couple sales, $62, $69, $59, $59, $59, $80. So definitely a very, very affordable book, especially in the 9.8 grade. And anytime you have a book that's going to move a lot in the market or be sold at those price points, are definitely going to have a lot of collectors thinking, hey, you know, $50, $60, $70 is not too bad for my budget. I'll definitely pick that one up. It's definitely a good spec. Why not have it in the collection? Anyways, that's all for this video. Those were Go Collect's hottest comics for the week. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys have any of these books? Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I will see you in the next one.